when you think of the difference between privacy and secrecy, I think privacy is something that oftentimes is out of respect, whether for yourself or someone else. Like, I'm holding this for us, it's not for others. I'm respecting your privacy. I'm respecting our trust together. And then secrecy, oftentimes, I think it incorporates a lot of hiding and a lot of shame, and I think a lot of lying because you're trying to hide something from everyone. You're not sharing it. And I think with secrecy, there's a heavy burden attached to it because it is something that you're trying to keep tight. You don't want anyone to know. And there's usually a specific kind of darker reason for that.
Welcome back to Unpacking the Closet. I'm Jerry.
And I'm Caitlin. And this is the season of connection, all about queerness, culture, and the joy we build through community. Today on the podcast, we have Kyle Ridley, Emmy Award-winning TV journalist and former morning show producer, now host of the Tangle with Kyle Ridley podcast, where he unpacks the stories that don't fit into a 5-minute segment. In 2026, Kyle publicly shared his decade-long secret struggle with bulimia, one of the most under-discussed topics in men's and LGBTQ plus health. You wrote one of our favorite quotes that we will get into later in the season, but privacy is about respect. Secrecy has shame attached. And truly, that really hit a chord with me. Kyle is also someone who uses storytelling as a professional craft and personal lifeline. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right. Let's go ahead and get into it. So you spent years in a control room deciding like whose stories got told, how it got framed. What made you kind of want to leave that side of the mic and take the seat in front?
I think after a decade in TV, it was just wearing on my mind and body. It's a fun environment to be in, but it's a constant grind where I was doing morning shows for a decade in the DC area. And that was 3 a.m. wake ups. And even though that was like a lifestyle show, we had to do news as well. So if you think of a Good Morning America or a Today Show, we start hard with all the top stories you need to know. And then we lighten up with guest segments. And that was what I really loved, was being able to help share people's stories and the fun guests or the mental health segments, like the deep discussions. And then after the election last year, I was like, I don't want to do all this over again. It was, it's not very fun news to report the last year or so, last couple years. And I just figured it was time for a change. And also I've booked thousands of segments over the years, and I'm invested in these guests. So I'm the one prepping the anchors and oftentimes coming up with the questions and doing the research. And then for 3 or 4 minutes on air, there's so much that we can't get to. So now I get to sit down with these people for half hour, an hour, and get to the underbelly of their life and their passions and their upbringing and career. And I'm enjoying it so far. And then leaving TV altogether, I also do like consulting now and help people get on TV. So it's like a lot of producers end up going the media relations route after they're done with the control room.
Yeah, that makes sense. And we completely hear you. When we started the podcast, it was before the election. And our whole first season was very like kind of technical, very educational, and a little heavy. And as soon as that election happened, we kind of had the same thing where we were like, we need to pivot. I can't do heavy content anymore. There's too much of it already happening in the world. I cannot listen to it and I can't produce it. Like, it just was too much. So we also were like, how do we pivot this podcast to be more about joy and resistance and still get information out there, but in a little bit of a lighter tone that we want to listen to and the listeners are going to also want to listen to, So
I get it.
Yeah.
It wears on your mind and body. You have to take care of yourself.
Exactly.
1,000%. I mean, with the switch that you've had, what does that freedom actually feel like for you?
It's a lot more sleep. I was pretty sleep deprived for a decade. So I would sleep in shifts. So I didn't want to go to bed at like 5 or 6 at night. So I would go to bed probably around 10 o'clock, wake up at 3. I'd get home around maybe 1 o'clock. I would take a nap. So it was like an hour here, 5 hours at night. It was just, it creeps up on you. And, I'm 41 now. So all throughout my 30s, and I could just feel it in my mind and body. And also I think just the passion kind of fades away after a while. And when that starts, I think that's your gut is telling you it's time to try something new. So you have to like believe in yourself. You have to bet on yourself. So I was like, I'm too old to be living in fear and imposter syndrome and scared of what might not work out. So I just had to take that leap.
What conversations have like surprised you the most since you've started the Tangle?
So it's mainly a celebrity interview podcast. Occasionally I'll have friends on for like fun conversations about the highs and lows of life. I say we go deep and we go shallow. But one thing that I always ask all my guests is how they're maintaining hope, because I think we could all use an extra dose of that right now. And even though I consider myself to be hope-filled and glass half full person, hearing other people's hope and how they're holding it can fill me up a bit more, especially when we're having those days where it just feels like nothing's working and you can't really see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I always ask my guests that. And then the other thing, the Tangle, the actual title of the podcast, I could sort of ask you guys this as well. I ask what they're currently tangled in that they're loving, immersing themselves, binge watching, reading, anything that they're enjoying, and then something frustrating that they need to get untangled. Because I think that's really what life is. We're all in different tangles, whether good or bad or, positive or negative. So we try to unearth the positive and the negative and see how we can sort of rework the frustrating stuff that we need to get untangled from.
I love that. Yeah. No, that's true.
That's so funny because it's just kind of like that's very similar to, we're unpacking the closet, right? So we're unpacking all of these topics for better or worse, and then trying to figure out what do we do with that once you get there.
Yeah.
I think that's a really beautiful title of a podcast, The Tangle, and hearing about it is so cool.
Yeah, we're all tangled in stuff every day. There's a new one to get tangled in.
That's the truth.
It really, really is. But it's interesting you say that, and it does kind of automatically, I feel like probably for all the listeners, you automatically think of something, right? The minute you said like, what are you tangled in that you're loving? What are you tangled in that you're not? Right? My brain was like, immediately I had answers for that. Because even if you're not thinking about it on a daily basis, you do know inwardly what is taking up time that maybe shouldn't be and what's taking up time that's like filling your cup. So I'm like, oh, that's so interesting. Like, I have this new job that I've started, and that was my first thought. You said like, what are you tangled in that's like not something that you're liking? For me, it would be not that I don't like the job, but it's not what I want. I'm an artist as well. I'm an artistic person. I've always preferred to be doing something creative. And right now I'm in a job that's very not creative at all. It gives me a lot of freedom in other ways that I needed, but that was my first thought, was like, oh, interesting.
I think that was me last year. So when I left TV, it was to find more like balance, work-life balance. And I actually went and became a technical writer for a software company that I used to work for in my 20s. So sort of slip back into that role, but your mind and your brain changes so much from decade to decade. And I found that the rigidity of that technical writing job, I was like, my brain doesn't work like this anymore. Like I need creativity. I need some passion. I need some artistic freedom, and it was too rigid for me, and so that did not last long. So now I'm sort of all by myself and figuring it out, but I'm always searching for my next gig, and I like that flexibility, but it also keeps you on your toes, obviously. But yeah, I definitely need more creativity at this stage in my life. I can't really be this technical rigid person all the time.
Yeah, I feel that for sure.
I hear that too. I'm curious about this privacy secrecy dichotomy that we're talking about. When did you first understand that distinction in your own life?
Yeah, I don't think I can take credit for that. I've heard it throughout the years, decades ago, but it rang true for me many years ago. Just that when you think of the difference between privacy and secrecy, I think privacy is something that oftentimes is out of respect, whether for yourself or someone else. Like I'm holding this for us, it's not for others. I'm respecting your privacy. I'm respecting our trust together. And then secrecy, oftentimes I think it incorporates a lot of hiding and a lot of shame, and I think a lot of lying, because you're trying to hide something from everyone. You're not sharing it. And I think with secrecy, there's a heavy burden attached to it because it is something that you're trying to keep tight. You don't want anyone to know. And there's usually a specific kind of darker reason for that. Whereas privacy is more about, that's just for me. I'm holding that close. And that really rang true for me. And with eating disorders, it's a disease of secrecy. It's a disease of lying. And yeah, it's a disease of excuses. So that really resonated with me.
Yeah. Yeah. You were a TV producer booking eating disorder stories for years, and every single guest you booked pretty much was a woman. Was there anything internally happening with you during all of that and not really seeing anyone represented that you could more connect to?
Yeah, I would get pitches every year, and February is Eating Disorder Awareness Month, and But I would get them throughout the year. Eating disorders, how to like recognize the signs, how to address it with family members or friends if you think there's an issue, resources for help. But every single pitch was a female spokesperson, either a survivor or someone battling it, or a nurse, a female nurse, or a female like a recovery coach. And for 10 years, every pitch, none of them were men. And I think it just speaks to the stigma that men, although it affects up to 20-25% of men people with eating disorders, 20 to 25% are men. We're not seeing them in the public. I think it's very slow to come by. I think it probably goes back to that toughen up mentality that a lot of men are raised with. Same way we're sort of taught not to really share our emotions and sort of be the leader and the stoic one. I think it keeps people from speaking out and sharing their story. But I think only good can come from sharing your story and opening up, because you're likely only going to find people that identify with you, even if it's just one person that resonate with your story. And most likely you're going to have people be thankful for you because they're identifying with you. But no one was really public about it. I think in recent years, we've seen some of it come to the surface, like in the show Heartstopper. I was really heartened to see the main character throughout the last season struggle with anorexia and how delicately it was addressed and very true to life. But for the most part, I grew up in the 90s. There was never men talking about it. And now we're 2026. It's still very rare to come by, but it runs the spectrum. It's not just restricting. It's not just binging and purging. You can see muscle bodybuilders. There's a lot of restriction and obsession that goes into that.
Yes.
And it's sort of,
Steroid use
yeah,
and things like that
it's
too.
oftentimes praised, like, wow, look at that body. But there's a lot of restriction. There's a lot of, I think, body abuse that goes into maintaining that.
I think that's another thing that's not talked about enough. Like when I tried to start getting into working out, I noticed that right away. It was something that really struck me, was like the amount of restriction that you had to go through to follow these people's workout plans and eating plans and all of these things. And I thought, how realistic is it to do that on a consistent basis for a long term? And what are the effects mentally and physically of doing that to yourself, of really like telling yourself that you're not good enough unless you're following this very rigid plan? And I could just never, I never could figure, I could never stick with it because it felt too, it did feel like sometimes you could easily slip into an eating disorder because of that, because you are like, oh, well, I can't touch that. Oh, I can only eat this portion. I can only eat, now we're weighing everything in grams on our little scales and it has to be this perfect amount. I need a snack, but I don't have any more calories for the day. So I'm just going to go hungry. It's a very slippery slope.
Yeah. And we're in, I think, a bad way right now. We're almost returning to the 90s heroin chic era right now with GLP-1s. And we sort of had like a short era of body positivity and embracing all sizes. And now we're, it seems Hollywood is back to just skeleton bodies that are being praised. But people know this is not sustainable. It's not healthy looking, but there's an addiction that comes with losing weight. There's an addiction that almost comes with getting negative attention, people being worried about you. It's like, ooh, there's a sickness to it because you're so deprived, you're so restricted, your brain is not functioning properly. It's sad. It's serious for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. What does it feel like now for you to kind of look back on that version of yourself now that you're kind of on the other side of it?
I don't want to ever live in regrets. I don't want to live in regrets, but I just feel like that era of me, it was so lost. I think my whole 20s pretty much. I struggled with bulimia daily for 7-8 years. And then the recovery process is lifelong. I've been in recovery since 2014. So, 12 or 13 years right now. April 1st will mark like my binge and purge end where I stopped, but it's always with you and just, you're never fully healed. Just like, unlike drugs or alcohol where you can sort of go cold turkey and never touch it again for your life, I'm touching food every day. I'm fully aware of what I'm putting in my body every day and what I'm consuming and how it's going to make me feel. So there's never like everything is just good. You can eat whatever you want and you feel great and you're perfectly good to go. No, you really can't get rid of that because you've retrained your brain. Recovery takes a lot of retraining your brain, learning about nutrition. And so it's all about choices. And part of it is feeling like I can make this choice to eat this food and I might feel bloated afterward or, stuffed. And uncomfortable, but I want to lounge on the couch. I want to eat this food and just have a cheat day night, if that's what you want, and just binge. And that word probably isn't a great word, but yeah, we all do it. But I'm not going to run to the toilet afterward. I know tomorrow I can work out and get back on track. It's normal now. It's a balance. It's not a be all end all, because when I was struggling, it was if I had one, you have these fear foods or these bad foods, which you realize in recovery that nothing is bad, but you have one chip, one piece of candy, well, you might as well eat the whole house and go buy more groceries and order food and eat everything, because your whole day is wasted. It's very restrictive. And then, as I said, like an addiction, it becomes your excuse for everything. So throughout my 20s, I didn't really have a social life. Everything was centered around when can I go home and eat, and when can I eat in private if I have to eat in my car if people are around, avoiding social situations because you don't want to eat with people, or you have to study the menu and figure out how you're going to get everything on the side. And then you don't want to, a lot of times you just don't want to deal with that because people are staring at they're realizing something. And so it's a vicious cycle. And then oftentimes you're high achieving. I graduated summa cum laude, had great jobs, but every waking moment that wasn't focused on what I had to do for work or school, it was rewarding myself and soothing myself with this addiction, this disease.
I work in mental health, and, we talk about eating disorders a bit, but honestly, there's a little bit lack of training for a lot of therapists surrounding like eating disorders. And, being that, I'm just thinking about like the LGBT folks and this kind of like accidental training in secrecy that we get, because we have to come out of the closet or come out or like have to wrestle with that ourselves. And you also see this level of kind of perfectionism take for a lot of queer folks, because we feel like we have to make up for something. And then I see that kind of intersectioning with what you're talking about in terms of eating disorders, because we already are not talking about queerness. And now we're not talking about body image and how eating disorders play into those kinds of things too, this hiding that happens. Do you think your experience of hiding maybe sexuality and hiding the eating disorder were related or feed each other?
I think, perhaps, possibly. And LGBTQ people are more prone to struggle with eating disorders, specifically men. And I was the chubby kid, the husky kid. And then on top of that, the gay kid, everyone knew I was gay. I wasn't out, but it was just one of those, my interests were all females, all my friends were girls. And so to sort of go through the cycle, especially in the 90s where we didn't have media representation, a lot of it was just about denial. It was also this, oftentimes me and my friends or people that I talk to now, it was this cycle of like denying, having your girlfriend in school, but people still knowing that you were gay, and then admitting, oh, well, maybe I'm bisexual and I like both. And like, then I don't like labels. I don't want to. And then finally, years, okay, I'm gay, only like guys. And now I'm heartened to see that, I have, my partner has kids and he came out to them a couple years ago. And it's just like, okay. It's like people can be out at school. Also in the 90s, in my era, the gay kids weren't friends. We were all secluded. We were all denying it. And so we couldn't really come together and have community. And so the last few years of my life have really been about building community, because so much of my addiction was just isolating and not having friends and really just hiding from everyone. And then I was married for a while. I got a divorce. And then I was like, I'm all alone and I really don't have anyone. I have my family, but I don't see them as much. I have my female friends that I don't see as much. They're having babies and moving away. And I was like, it's fine to finally accept who I am and embrace who I am and find my tribe, as they say. You just have to get out there and put the work in. But it takes work, but you always are going to find people who identify with you. And with that, also found people who identified with binge eating or restrictive eating. It is pretty prevalent in the LGBTQ community. We just don't talk about it. But there's a lot of body image pressure.
100%.
From the early days of being a child, there's a lot of body image pressure, and still.
Yeah, I mean, our community, we have a really high prevalence of a lot of things that people don't want to talk about. Alcoholism, drug abuse. It's all very hush hush and secretive. And it does kind of make me think of what you said, Jerry, that like, it's almost like the experience of all of us being in the closet at some point and having to hide that part of our lives helped us practice compartmentalization. And when we learn to just hide other things,
Well, it's survival. We have to. Because if we can't accept this one part, how are we supposed to look at this other piece?
Right. Yeah. And it teaches you to think that like you're alone, because that's how they wanted us all to feel for so long. And sometimes I feel like we're slipping back into that, them wanting to think that we don't have community, that we don't have people that relate to us that are going through the same struggles, that know what it's like. When in reality, once you do finally open up and you kind of look for that community and you realize we are all more alike than we think, and we do all have similar struggles. So yeah, I just think that's such an important topic for us to talk about as much as possible.
Yeah, and I sort of fell into the depths of my disorder in my early 20s, and I was in a relationship, my first relationship, with a much older man, and it's different time now, but it's actually pretty common, I think, it's more for men, but to date older men. But I was 17 dating someone who was in their 40s at the time and thinking I was very adult. Ended up being with that person for 5 or 6 years. But again, trying to feel like everything was okay. But looking back now, I was so young. I didn't know how to navigate that type of relationship. It was a serious relationship. I moved out my senior year of high school. He battled depression. And I think we both lost ourselves in that relationship, and neither of us knew how to help each other. And I think for me, I turned to food. That was like my friend. It was like I didn't have anyone else to talk to. I didn't have a community. I was hiding a lot of stuff from my family. I didn't live with them anymore. So that almost became my comfort, was this mounds of food that I would eat every day and have my routine of whether it was like a spread, if I made a buffet, or if I cooked certain foods. And I would have days where I knew I couldn't be alone. So I would go to a buffet by myself or eat in the car. Like I have a secret parking spot that I would just go down, and it's so isolating, and it just can take over. But then it also became as I said, my excuse, my reward, everything. If I got a good grade on a test, I aced a test. Oh, good. I'll binge. Oh, I'm in a fight with my partner. I'll binge. I deserve this. Your mind it just becomes very one-dimensional in that sense. How do I get my next fix? Yeah.
Yeah.
What was it like to go public with your story?
Yeah, I waited almost a decade, and I still haven't talked about it much up until this year started actually speaking about it. I really only had before made an Instagram post, and that was all. But this year made a conscious effort to get in front of the mic and not just interview people, but let people speak with me and in turn share my story. I've only received positive feedback and people that relate or thanking me. And I hope that encourages others, because if anyone is going to judge you for an addiction or past struggles, that's certainly not who you want in your corner. It's not who you want in your circle. So I would advise anyone worried about reaction to forget that, because there's only good that's going to be coming from sharing your truth. And it's going to be such a burden unloaded from yourself as well. And it'll help you move forward and open up new doors to community and to just living your life out loud. And so I really just hope to continue sharing my story and slowly working on like a book of short stories, memoir-esque about the journey. Cause it's a really dark period. If you think about 7 years, and this was daily, and this was up to 2, sometimes 3 times a day. Like you're just living addicted. You're living. Yeah. It's sad. It's a violent disease too. People don't like talk about it. It's a disgusting thought. It's a violent act that you're doing to yourself. Retching over a toilet every day for years. It's uncomfortable for people to talk about it, especially men, but we need to open those doors because there's a lot of silent struggling.
Yeah. I'm curious, kind of a 2-part question. Who did you tell first when you first finally kind of came face to face with this? And did you feel relief right away at having told someone, or did it take you a while?
My mom knew, because we've had family members struggle with eating disorders, and she, although we didn't live with her, she would see me at family events, a few times a year, and she knew something was up. And she knew that I had restricted in the past, because just like I mentioned, in the 90s, I was not immune to like starting a different diet every week. We had snack wells, fat was bad, Slim Fast, Nutrisystem. And I was also kind of raised in that environment where she was trying different stuff every week. So we're very attuned to the body image and what's good and bad. And so she noticed that I had lost a severe amount of weight and wasn't eating much. And I think it was 3 or 4 years into my addiction that she was frightened when she saw me at a family event, and she contacted my husband at the time, who I had hidden it from for the first 2 years of our relationship, even though we were living together. It was all done in secret when he wasn't home or I was out by myself. And so she confronted him about it, and that in turn, he confronted me about it. So it was like a mini intervention. So it wasn't me finally coming clean. It was being confronted. And that was when I decided to get help, because I really was scared that I was going to lose everything. I was proud of my relationship and was hoping to get married, and I was living with this person. And I was just like, I cannot keep doing this, it's my plans are foiled. I'm getting caught. It's noticeable. I can't keep denying and lying and keeping the secret. And I wanted to save my marriage and be able to have at least these people in my life. I was also getting scared that I would just never get better, because just like dieting, I would always plan on Mondays. I'm not going to, I'm going to start clean, no more binging, no more purging. I'll be normal. And that just didn't work for years and years. And I was like, am I just never going to get better? Why can't I do this? So that was really the kickstart I needed to get help. And I went to therapy and did a lot of research and started talking to other people, but I didn't go to Inpatient. It was recommended. And again, think that was also just about control, me wanting to control my narrative, being scared to go away and leave everything. Maybe I probably possibly could have recovered a bit faster, but I just did individual outpatient.
Well, it seems like it got you the help that you were seeking. I mean, that's whatever works.
I don't know that there's one
recovery.
Yeah, there's no one right way to recover from anything, right? Everyone's going to have their own unique experience with it.
Right. Yeah.
No, go on, please.
No, I think the first step, I just hope encouraging people, the first step, because most people with an eating disorder know that they're struggling, even if they don't want to admit it, they know something. But to talk to one person, even if it's not a therapist, if it's just a friend who you know will thank you and not pressure you to do anything, but just to receive what you're saying, that will open a lot of doors. Just to unburden that first, to tell one person who knows that's in your corner, that you know is in your corner, that will receive it. So I think that's the first step. I'm really hoping.
Yeah. I imagine being that you're a professional storyteller, and you have like so much experience in telling stories. Was it harder or easier to tell your own story?
It's definitely been harder. I'm always just used to the one researching and producing and asking the questions. Even in my friend group, I can sort of always guide the conversations where I'm always like almost interviewing friends and always have my questions. And then when someone turns it on me, I know how to just redirect pretty fast. So it's still hard, but I'm trying to sit in the discomfort of that again, because it's an uncomfortable conversation that many people deny and avoid talking about and just struggle with it in secret. So it's getting easier with each passing week or day or month. Yeah, and sharing it more and more helps get the word out, because with that, you're also receiving more people that identify and relate. But it's scary. Took me almost a decade to actually admit to anyone that I had a problem.
Yeah. But you kind of are becoming that voice that you didn't have, which is so important. Like you said, to now know that people are reaching out to you being like, oh, wow, I've struggled with this, or your story really resonates with me for these ways, where maybe they didn't have anybody prior to that, So as scary as it is, it's also really, I'm sure, in a way rewarding.
Absolutely. It's very rewarding. Yeah. I thank everyone who's contacted me and welcome anyone else to contact me. And yeah, we need those support corners. And there's plenty online as well if you want to join groups. If you don't want to go do in-person stuff, I know that can be scary. There's many forums that you can join online. There's support groups. And if you want to read other people's recovery stories or journeys, I encourage that. You can also just, like you're doing, there's many podcasts that cover body image and struggles and recovery and hope, which I think we all need. So immersing yourself in that can really help, because no one is one-dimensional and no one is alone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're talking, which is something that comes up, I think, a lot for our community too, the word resilience comes to mind. What does that look like in practice for you?
I find myself using that word a lot more lately too, just because I think the older we get, the more resilient we realize we are. Hopefully a lot of people in their younger years don't have to deal with too much loss or struggle or addiction. But the older we get, I'm 41 now. Family members start to get sick. You lose people. We're going through real life stuff, divorce, addiction, and your worst dreams, or your worst thoughts, not dreams, but like nightmares, oftentimes happen, and you don't realize how you're going to get through it. And your body and mind just does. My mom has had cancer twice at this point, and she was re-diagnosed last year. And it's just like that thing we all worry about all growing up. When it happens, you're sort of in fight or flight, and you just know how to deal with it. So the resilience, I'm proud of resilience. I think this whole world is resilient right now. We're living in unprecedented times where it seems every day we wake up and are having to put ourselves through the ringer, or we're being put through the ringer. So we're all resilient. And so I think if anyone feels like they're not strong enough or doesn't have that hope, everyone has it. You just need to hold on. And that's why I recommend reaching out to one person, because that one person can help pull you up and through it as well. It's just a lot of struggle feeling like you are all alone, but I truly don't believe anyone's all alone.
No. Yeah, exactly. That's why I think it's so important that we have podcasts like yours and ours and others, right? Or TV shows and movies and as much representation as possible to really let people know, especially with how the world is going right now, that they aren't actually alone and that this isn't a bad thing. Being who you are is not negative, and you shouldn't be made to feel othered. So yeah, so I don't know where I was trying to go with that, but that was the immediate thought when you said that, like, just I'm so glad that we at least have these places. If somebody doesn't feel like they have even one safe person, you could find, like you said, a community online, you could find a podcast like this, you could find a TV show, a movie, a book, something that you can resonate with that tells you that you aren't alone and that you can keep going and that there are others out there struggling with the same things as you. And hopefully that will push people forward.
Yeah, and I think a lot of times the struggle isn't, it's much more than food or body image. I think for me, when I was younger, it really is about control. It's about anxiety. I didn't know how to deal with my anxiety a lot of times. And so I ran to, instead of drugs, my drug was food, and filling up on that for hours a day and mindlessly numbing myself with food. That was what soothed me. That was what I felt could control my anxiety. I also want to let everyone know that I was one of those people for many years, decades, that did not take any medicine. I know it's not for everyone, but it was in the pandemic where I was like, let me just try it. So there is stuff that can help. And I certainly get anxiety now. I take a low dose anxiety medicine, but I don't ruminate for days or weeks on end about something. I can feel the anxiety. I can process it and watch it wash over me much faster. So I do let everyone know that medication is also out there if you need it, or to definitely talk with your doctor about it. Because I was very fearful of that for years.
That's music to my ears as a mental health professional. I mean, again, not for everybody, but we all have different biology, and sometimes our brains are just need a little something to help us get through.
Absolutely.
And I think that's such an important thing out there, is to kind of demystify medication management. Like, sometimes, you need it. If you break your arm, you might need an Advil. Something's going on with your brain, you might need a little help from a little low dose anxiety medication.
And you can always adjust, and there are medicines that don't make you gain weight. That's a big fear for people as well. So just
I hear
do
that
your research.
Yeah.
Very thankful.
Absolutely.
Would it be okay if we do a little bit of a lightning round with a few questions?
Sure.
All right, great. Besides what we've been talking about, what's a secret that you kept for too long?
Rapid fire. What's a secret I kept for too long? Well, these can go dark. Well, that was a secret. Dating someone 25 years older than me was a big secret when I was younger. I met him when I was almost like a month before turning 17. So that was very frowned upon. And it's very conflicting looking back.
Sure.
But I also think I kept it secret because he ended up passing away. So he's not here to talk about it. I think there was a lot of secrecy in that relationship, people's judgment of it, and not understanding my side of it, and also not really knowing how to explain that side of it because I was so young. That was definitely a secret. But again, sharing it. I mean, if someone judges you, who are they?
Yeah. I mean, we all have life experiences.
Yes.
I mean, I think you said it well about getting older, and there's a wisdom that comes with that because of the life that we live.
Yeah.
This could go either way. The most underrated thing about being gay.
Underrated. Well, is this underrated? Like, I'm going right to not having kids. I don't want to say that because now I kind of have stepkids. It's like money. No, not having so much responsibility, but that's pretty. People, I think, understand that. Like, not as much responsibility and sleep. Underrated. I don't know if people realize how welcoming and open gay people are, because when I was growing up, I felt like was so outside of the LGBTQ community. Again, in the 90s, we didn't have much representation. We had the representation that we did have was very stereotypical. Maybe it was just Jack, Will and Grace and stuff like that, or Ricky on My So-Called Life. We had like one character every few years on TV. And I was like, well, I'm not that type of gay. So I don't belong in this community. And so it took me so long to actually go out and find my tribe. And I encourage people to do that much younger now. And I think they are. But back in the day, when there were,
speaking, they are.
Yeah. There was no, I came out like right at the dawn of the internet. So it was still early days where you actually had to go out and meet people. And I was at the early age of like AOL chat rooms. So
AOL.
AOL chat rooms.
The
Yeah.
door
But
shutting.
yeah. So when people say like, I don't identify with being gay or I don't like the scene, I made an admission in my late 30s after my divorce to build this community. And I kept a list like on my phone of everyone that I met. And I got on the apps, and these don't all have to be hookup acts. I met like, it's in like almost 200 people that I met for coffee or a drink, and just like 30-45 minute meetups to see like who can I connect with. And yeah, there's a lot of people that you're just going to be like, oh, they were nice, but like we didn't really mesh. But you're going to find people that you do connect with. And that's really what I'm proud of these last few years. Like I have this beautiful community of men that we go to trivia together, we go to the beach, we go dancing,
fun.
and we do like normal stuff. It just, you put yourself out there, and it is such a welcoming and loving community. And even if you don't connect with people, it doesn't mean like they're bitches. It's just, you're not going to connect with everyone. So don't leave the fear aside, because again, we're all multifaceted.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Sometimes you just don't connect with certain people. That's okay.
Yeah. I
love that.
A lot.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I love that you were doing it, as we would put it now, old school, and meeting people for like in person. I think after the pandemic, there's been such a reduction in that. And I would love to meet more people for coffee and things like that. I think that's really fun.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. It's brilliant. And I've also been talking to people on the phone a little bit more, but I'm one of those people that has totally been influenced by the phone. Like I'm scared to pick up the phone. Like, why are you calling me? Like we're such a text-based non-verbal community now. So I'm trying to embrace talking and speaking with people more and seeing people face to face, because it is such a Zoom world right now.
It's so true.
Yeah. I'm curious, for your own podcast, is there one moment that sticks out to you that was more unscripted, something that came up that wasn't necessarily, you weren't planning on saying it, it wasn't necessarily in the script, but it ended up being like a favorite moment for you?
Well, I interviewed a comedian, Liza Traeger, and she's really outspoken. And I asked her about like the division right now with comedians, where we have like these outspoken like female comedians and progressive comedians, and then we have these podcast bros that have really been influential in recent years, especially in politics, and thinking that they're political and influencers. And she just like went off and named a bunch of podcast bros and who she's like fighting with and won't talk to, and like who's MAGA. So that was unexpected, and it kind of went viral. But there's also just more beautiful times. Like I spoke with Dustin Lance Black, who wrote the movie Milk. I was a 90s kid, so I used to watch The Real World a lot, and I interviewed Danny Roberts from The Real World in New Orleans. His season back in the early 2000s, it was like during Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and he was dating someone in the military, and they brought him on with his face blurred, and he sort of broke down Don't Ask, Don't Tell. It was shortly after that it was overturned, and that was a big moment, like him being so candid about that. Sometimes I'm mostly surprised by how candid people will get, because I always have my questions, but I don't try to be too intrusive. But I think just when people get in a groove and realize who you are, it just leads to opening the doors more. So I tried to pat myself on the back with that, because I always try to be thoughtful and respectful. I'm not a gotcha journalist. I'm not a gossipy journalist. But when you get in the groove of being candid and just talking about life, a lot comes out. So I encourage people to dive into those. Yeah, there's a lot of meaningful. As I say, we go deep and shallow. So we have laughs, we have people crying. And I interviewed Candace from The Traders recently, and I asked her about her relationship to the LGBTQ community, because she has such a big following. And she like broke out her cry-angle and started crying because she's so like thankful for that community. So that was a beautiful moment.
Oh, I love that. Also, Traders is great.
I know, I love Traders.
Yeah, she's great.
Gosh. So I'm curious, what is your favorite TV show right now?
Ooh. My all-time favorite TV show is The Comeback, and that's coming back this month for a final season, the third season. And it's 20 years later, so they did one in 2005, 2015, and now 2026. And I think anything Lisa Kudrow does, I just adore. So that's my all-time favorite show. I'm also watching right now, well, The Pitt is just addictive. I love The Pitt, Noah Wyle. Anything else? I rewatched some shows recently. I rewatched like Nurse Jackie and
I love Nurse Jackie.
I love dark comedies and dramas. I'm not like a sci-fi action Marvel type of guy. What are you guys watching?
gosh.
I mean, we just finished Bridgerton.
We just,
Of
Okay.
course.
So did
With
my
everyone
partner.
else. With everyone
My
else.
partner watched that too. Yeah, he loves Bridgerton.
so good. I like a happy ending. I mean, of course, I was obsessed with Heated Rivalry because who wasn't?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so good.
Yes.
So good. Oh my gosh. That's the type of
Survivor.
programming we need. Yes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Kyle, where can people find you, follow you, all the things?
Yeah.
Well, the Tangle with Kyle Ridley, wherever you get your podcasts. And then I post a lot on Instagram at Kyle Ridley with an underscore. And then if you search the Tangle with, or just my name, Kyle Ridley, you can find me on TikTok and YouTube and KyleRidley.com. Just trying to cover all the bases. It's a lot, but trying to be more out there this year with social media.
Very cool. All right. Well, I'd like to end this podcast with a quote that I think really fits everything we've been talking about. You are allowed to be both a masterpiece and a work in progress simultaneously. And I think that goes for everything we said. I think all of us are, right? And it's okay. It's okay that you're not finished. And that's beautiful, right? None of us are ever going to be finished or perfect. That doesn't mean that you're not beautiful in your own way. And we just really want to thank you, Kyle, for being on the podcast. It was a great conversation. I know I really enjoyed this and hearing more about your story.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course. Keep showing up even when it's messy. We'll see you next time in the closet.